The late Tobe Hooper's The Texas Chainsaw Massacre rocked audiences with its brand of shock and violence and disturbing imagery, earning the director and film a place amongst the genre greats. Since the release of that seminal 1974 classic, the series' icon, a chainsaw-wielding maniac by the name of Leatherface, has lumbered through 7 sequels to varying degrees of critical and artistic success. He returns once more in Leatherface, a film that promises to explore the monster's origins, despite the series having done so 11 years prior in the aptly titled The Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Beginning. Originally slated for theatrical release in 2016, Leatherface has suffered its fair share of misfortune, enduring more than a few extra sessions under the studio knife. The features of this beast have long been gruesomely excised, rearranged and replaced before being sewn back together again. The resulting mess hardly resembles the form of a film, its hideous scars barely disguised, though none more apparent than in the earliest scenes, a seemingly unending series of prologues that hang rather loosely together. The first introduces the head matriarch of the Sawyer family, played by an excellently hammy, if underutilised, Lily Taylor, as she balks at her son's reluctance to participate in their wicked brand of punishment. Another scene provides Stephen Dorff's Sean Penn and Mystic River moment, albeit performed with the roaring intensity of a drag race between slugs and snails. In the scene, Stephen Dorff's Sheriff Hartman discovers his daughter has been murdered at the hands of the Sawyer family, who are seemingly constant winners in Texas murder bingo without ever raising more than a passing suspicion from the locals. With economy clearly in the minds of the filmmakers, Hartman bolts through 5 stages of grief, perhaps even making up a few along the way, before turning the Sawyer children into child protection. We are then thrust 10 years forward to find the youngest Sawyer, Jed, now a young adult relocated to a Texas mental institution for disturbed youths. Here, the film settles with a mix of natural-born killers and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, as a handful of young but violently dangerous mental patients make their escape with a nurse as their hostage. There is also a half-hearted mystery surrounding which of these characters is soon to become horror's favourite villain voted most likely to hold a Screwfix loyalty card. However, I suspect it's a mystery that most audiences will not only solve before it is even established, but will also doubt whether it was a question that needed asking in the first place. Horror prequels have rarely served as a rewarding experience, with Rob Zombie's Halloween, a film whose final act is akin to John Carpenter's original played out double speed to a soundtrack of yakety sax, standing as the antithesis of horror. Although Leatherface's star doesn't fall enough to include the equivalent of a Love Hurts montage, it shares one of its core faults, as the attempt to humanise and explore these monsters in greater depth ultimately serves to rob them of their menace. This is no fault of the actor who inevitably dons the leather face, as he serves the role well and cuts a genuinely unsettling figure when eventually called to swing the series' eponymous chainsaw. Instead, it is the fault of the tone and direction. French auteurs Alexandre Bustillo and Julien Marie turn a focus to the titular character, providing him a backstory laced with tragedy and abuse, but fear is elevated by what we consider unknowable, and once a light is turned to that darkness, we often realise what rattled us really matched the terror-inducing imagery conjured by our own imagination. Not only is this backstory unneeded, but its redundancy is further bolstered by the fact that even at its best, Leatherface is unable to shake a feeling of déjà vu. In a series that is increasingly hinged on the image of a woman running through the woods pursued by a chainsaw-wielding maniac, you'd think one would grow bored when the scene in question inevitably comes to pass. Yet it's in this all-too-brief moment that Leatherface packs its biggest punch, the filmmakers and actors displaying far more confidence working with the imagery and tone. It's a shame then that the film is at its best when serving as a strict imitation, but praise is still deserved for the excellent display of practical gore effects, even if it takes too long to get to the rusty end of the point. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre series has, with the exception of the previously mentioned Tobe Hooper film, rarely been held with high regard. Leatherface is not the lowest point in the series, not even worse than half the films the series has churned out, but it is likely the most unnecessary and ultimately the dullest. Though production studios are still pushing the monster out into the woods to scare up audiences, no one seems to have noticed that his chainsaw has long since run out of gas. I award Leatherface 2 out of 5 stars.
You show 'em who you are.
And that is all from me, Gareth Green, with my latest review. Remember to subscribe to Popcorn Digest for up-to-date reviews, interviews and much more, and follow us on our social media pages found at the links below. I'll be back soon with more exclusive Grimfest content, but in the meantime, thanks for listening.